In the fall of 1957, a 10-year-old boy named Coy Weathers walked into a cornfield outside Dimmitt, Texas. He was gone for 48 hours. When he walked back out, he was wearing the same clothes he left in, but the pants stopped above his ankles now. The shirt pulled tight across his shoulders, and his boots didn't fit anymore, so he was carrying them. His mother ran across the yard to him. She grabbed him and held him and said his name over and over. And then she stepped back to look at him, and she went still. Something was wrong. And standing right there in the yard, she said the words she would later repeat to her minister word for word, and he wrote them down. She said, "That's not 2 days of growing." She was right. Coy Weathers had been gone 48 hours, but the boy who walked out of that corn was about 2 years older than the boy who walked in. And that's not a figure of speech. People measured him. They wrote the numbers down. Some of that paper still exists. That's the starting point. Everything comes apart from there. I'll start with what got written down and build out from there. It was the morning of October 14th, 1957. Coy Weathers was 10 years old, the only son of Ross and Ina Weathers, a farm family in Castro County, Texas. A little before 6 in the morning, before sunup, Coy stepped off the back porch. He was dressed for school. He hadn't eaten breakfast. His mother was already up, working at the stove, and she watched him through the kitchen window as he crossed the yard. She watched him stop at the edge of the corn and look up. Not ahead. Up. At first she thought he was looking at a hawk or a weather balloon or some strange early light on the clouds. Then she saw what he was looking at. As far as any record shows, Ina Weathers only described it once. She described it to her minister, Reverend Otis Chalmers, in a private conversation a few weeks later. Chalmers had a habit his whole congregation knew about. After any serious private talk, he went home and wrote it down that same evening in composition books he kept in his study. When he died, those books went to the county museum. In 2023, I read the entry myself. Here is what Chalmers wrote that night. Ina was calm in the telling, and I do not doubt her. She said it stood at the edge of the rows, taller than a man, thin, with a head too big for the body, and skin the grey of a dead mesquite. She said it was watching the boy, and the boy was watching it back like it was somebody he knew. She said that was the part that took the strength out of her legs, not the thing itself, the boy not being afraid of it. She called for her husband. By the time Ross got to the window, Coy was in the corn, and the thing at the edge of the rows was gone. They searched all morning, both of them, up and down the rows, calling his name. Around noon, Ross drove to the sheriff's substation and filed a report. That report survives. It's in the county intake log for October 14th, 1957, a missing child entry, case number CC 81057, and that is almost all that survives. Open the folder today and you'll find the intake form and one handwritten line, added 2 days later. The line says, "Located, no further action." That's it, no search records, no interviews with the neighbors, no state police, and in 1957, when a child went missing in farm country, calling in the state police was the normal next step. A 10-year-old boy was gone for 2 full days, and the entire official record of it is 1 form and 4 words. The more time I spent with that file, the more those 4 words felt less like an ending and more like a lid. Coy came home on the morning of October 16th. Ross was working on the windmill when he saw the boy come out of the rows. He was walking steady, not hurt, not crying, carrying his boots in one hand like a man coming in from a long day of work. Ross told Reverend Chalmers about it, and it's in the same composition books. What struck Ross first wasn't the clothes, it was the walk. Chalmers wrote, Ross said the boy walked different, not limping, different. He said a father knows his own boy's walk from any distance you can name, and that was not the walk that went into the field. Then the boy got close, and the clothes stopped making sense. The pants were 3 inches short. The shirt was straining at the seams. The boots were in his hand because his feet had outgrown them in 48 hours. Ina made him breakfast. Chalmers's notes say he ate like a hand at threshing time, then asked for more and ate that too. When Ina finally found her voice, she asked him where he'd been. Coy looked at her, thought about it, and gave the answer he would keep giving for the rest of his life. He said, away at school? He was 10 years old, or he had been 2 days before. Now here's where this stops being a strange family story and becomes something I can't make go away. Because unlike almost every other case in this whole field, what happened to Coy Weathers was measurable. And it got measured. 5 weeks before the Cornfield, on September 9th, 1957, Coy went through the school's fall physical. Every child in the county got one. Height, weight, eyes, teeth, all recorded on a county health card. He measured 52 inches, he weighed 68 pounds. Then, 3 days after he came out of the corn, Ina took him to Dr. Emmett Kyle, the town doctor, because the clothes could not be argued with. Kyle measured him and compared it to the September card. 55 inches, 79 pounds, 3 inches taller, 11 pounds heavier, in 5 weeks. And by his mother's own arms and his father's own eyes, almost all of it happened in 2 days. Dr. Kyle's patient ledgers ended up in the county historical collection after he died. The page for October 19, 1957 exists. I've held a photocopy of it. And in the margin of that page, the doctor wrote one of the most careful, most frightened sentences I have ever read. He wrote, "Measurements retaken twice, instruments checked against my own height marks. The error is not in the instruments." And then there are the teeth. Ina had noticed Coy rubbing his jaw like it was sore, so Dr. Kyle sent him to the dentist. The dentist found something the September school card said should not be there. A 12-year molar, fully in, not coming in. In. Teeth are how you age a child when nothing else can be trusted. A dentist knows a 10-year-old mouth from a 12-year-old mouth the same way a farmer knows corn from Milo. The finding was written on Kyle's ledger page. The dentist's own records can't be checked. His practice sold in 1968, and when researchers went looking decades later, the new owner's files only went back to 1961, clean and complete, starting 4 years after the 1 year that matters. You'll notice a pattern starting here. Hold on to it because it repeats. It repeats at the school. Coy went back to class at the end of October. Within a month, his teacher asked Ross and Ina to come in for a conference. It wasn't about behavior. Coy was quiet and polite. It was about everything else. His handwriting had changed, not gotten worse. Changed. The letters were formed the way a child 2 grades up forms them. He was suddenly comfortable with arithmetic he'd never been taught. The teacher told Ina it wasn't that he was learning the new material fast. She said it seemed like the material wasn't new to him at all, like he was being reminded, not taught. And out in the schoolyard, the other boys couldn't keep up with him anymore, not even close. The teacher took it to the principal. The principal told the family he sent the health cards and a written summary up to the county. He didn't say who at the county. It's not clear he even knew. So in 2022, I asked. The school's old records had been moved to the district office. The archivist there was patient and thorough, and she found Coy's student file covering 1955 through 1959. It holds his enrollment form, his attendance, and his report cards. It does not hold the September health card. It does not hold the October health card. It does not hold one word about a conference or a summary or anything unusual at all. The archivist pulled other student files from that same classroom to compare. Every one of them had its health cards clipped inside the folder. Coy's folder had the rust marks of a paperclip on the inside cover, and nothing clipped to it. Those cards weren't lost. They were removed. There's a difference, and a rusty paperclip mark with nothing under it is the difference, and that should have been the end of the paper trail. One ledger page in a county collection, and a lot of holes where documents used to be. Except that 4 years later, in the spring of 1962, somebody mailed those missing documents to a doctor 200 miles away. Dr. Lloyd Hemphill was a professor of pediatrics in Dallas. He studied how children grow. In April of 1962, a package arrived for him in the campus mail. Inside were copies of 2 county health cards, a doctor's ledger page, and 4 photographs of the same boy. 2 of the photos were marked September 1957. 2 were marked November 1957. There was no letter, no return address, just a postmark from Plainview, Texas. We know all this because Hemphill wrote about the package to a colleague in Galveston, and that colleague's papers ended up in a university archive, which is where I found the letter in 2023. Hemphill's letter is 2 pages long, and it reads like a careful man trying to stay calm on paper. He wrote that the measurements, if they were real, showed about 26 months of growth in a matter of weeks. He wrote that the photographs bothered him more than the numbers did. He wrote, "The November face is not the September face grown taller. It is the September face grown older. The jaw is different. Any pediatrician will know what I mean, and will know it cannot be produced by 5 weeks." He showed the materials to 2 colleagues without telling them where they came from. Both of them asked him the same question. They asked if the photographs showed 2 different brothers, and he ended the letter with a sentence I have read many times. He wrote, "If this is a hoax, it was built by someone who understands how children's bones grow better than my residents do. If it is not a hoax, then somewhere in the Panhandle there is a child who was somewhere else for a great deal longer than he was missing." 4 months later, Dr. Hemphill resigned. His file gives 1 line of explanation: personal reasons. He never published again. His colleagues' later papers never mention him again. I could not find where he went. A man receives proof of the impossible in April, tells exactly 1 person, and by the end of summer, he has quietly stepped out of the record completely. If you followed cases like this before, you knew this part was coming. Contact with whatever came out of that cornfield, followed by a clean disappearance from the paper world. The lid again. The same lid. But there was one thing the lid could never cover: the boy himself. Coy Weathers didn't vanish, and he didn't go silent. He grew up right there in Castro County. He graduated in 1964, which made him 17 by his birth certificate and about 19 by his teeth. He farmed with his father, then for himself. In 1968, he married a girl from Tulia named Nita Cruz, and everyone I found who knew him described him the same way: steady, unhurried, completely ordinary, except for one habit that 3 different people mentioned to me without me asking. Coy never wore a watch. He worked by the sun and the radio, but he would not put a watch on his wrist. His hired man told me Coy explained it to him once and only once. He said clocks and me had a falling out. Nita Weathers agreed to talk to me in 2023. She was 76. Coy had died in 2019. She told me he laid the whole thing out for her early on their 3rd date. Not like a confession, she said, more like a man disclosing a lien on the property. He thought she had a right to know what she was getting. He told her he followed something into the corn because it wanted him to, and the wanting felt like his own. He told her his family swore he was gone 2 days, and he told her that inside it wasn't 2 days. Nita said, he said there were days in there, mornings and nights, meals. She said he would get slow when he talked about it, like a man reading print that's too small. And then she told me what he said was in there. He said we had lessons and we had chores and we grew. He also told her about the others. His parents never heard this part, neither did the doctor. In 50 years of marriage, Nita was the only person he ever gave it to. He had not been alone in there. There were other children, 4 of them, he thought, maybe 5. And they weren't all from 1957, nobody explained that to him. He could just tell from how they talked, from what they knew and didn't know, from the clothes they showed up in. There was a boy who talked about the war like it was still going on. There was a little girl in a dress like something Nita's grandmother would have worn. Children from different years, all checked into the same place, like travelers checking into the same hotel from different towns. And there was one more. This is the one Nita almost didn't tell me. A girl older than the rest, who helped the little ones settle in when they arrived. Coy asked her once how long she'd been there. The girl thought about it. She thought about it too long, the way you'd think about a question in a language you were starting to lose. Then she answered, "I've been 11 for a while now." Stop and think about what that means, because the whole case turns on it. Time in that place was not broken, it was controlled. Coy was inside for about 2 years and came home to a world where 2 days had passed. That girl had been inside long enough to lose count, and she hadn't aged a day past 11. Time in there didn't just run fast or run slow. It ran however they needed it to run, for each child, for each purpose. Which means the 2 years Coy came back wearing were not an accident. They were not a side effect. They were the point. You don't run a school without a schedule. Whatever they were raising him toward took 2 years, so they took 2 years. And the morning they were done, they sent him home, walking steady, carrying his boots, asking for eggs. Because that's the word this whole case keeps coming back to. School. It was Coy's own word at age 10 at the kitchen table. Away at school, lessons and chores. Older students helping the young ones settle in. So I went looking for the other students, not the missing children who came back silent or strange. Those cases have their own investigators. I went looking for the growth cases, the clock cases, and they exist. Thin, scattered, half erased, exactly like you'd expect. But they exist. Near Lubbock, in 1954, a 9-year-old girl was gone for 22 days. There was a huge search. It made the newspapers. Then she came home. Same dress, same size, same shoes still fit. Not 1 ounce or 1 inch different. And hungry for the supper she'd missed the night she disappeared. The papers called it a miracle. Her mother gave exactly 1 interview, and in it she said something the reporter clearly took for grief talking. I take it for the other half of Coy's case. She said, "It's like she was kept somewhere the days couldn't get at her." In Arkansas in 1961, an 11-year-old boy was gone 4 days and came back seeming untouched. 8 years later, he took an Army entrance physical. The X-rays found old, fully healed breaks in his forearm and his collarbone. His family couldn't explain them. Healed breaks take months. His medical history had no room for those months. His whole life, as everyone around him lived it and watched it, had no room for those months. Somewhere, sometime, that boy lived months that nobody on earth was there for. And in Kansas in 1966, a 19-year-old took a physical for a life insurance policy. The examining doctor flagged a problem. The young man's bones read several years older than his birth certificate. The file survives in the insurance company's archive because the case was disputed. And the dispute file has 1 note that stops you cold. It says the young man's mother refused flat out to discuss the summer he was away. The company quietly issued the policy at the higher age. 3 cases, Texas, Arkansas, Kansas, the same quiet farm country, the same decade, the same signature. Children and clocks that stopped agreeing with each other. And think about how I found those 3. A newspaper story, an Army X-ray, an insurance dispute, accidents of paperwork. Now think about how many children came back a size bigger in places where nobody wrote anything down, where the mother let out the pant hems, thanked God and never said a word. The cases I found are not the full size of this thing, they're just the leaks in the lid. Coy Weathers lived to be 72. That's what the stone says, and I have to tell you about the end because this case didn't stop in 1957. It never stopped at all. His memories of the 2 years faded, not all at once, in pieces across his first months home. He told Nita it was like fields going dark one at a time when the lines are down. By that first Christmas, he had the shape of it and almost none of the detail. And it stayed that way for 60 years. Lessons, chores, the other children, the girl who had been 11 for a while. He said losing those memories didn't feel like forgetting. He said it felt like it got collected, like library books coming due. But the 2 years themselves never faded because they couldn't. They were part of him. They were his bones and his teeth and his face. In 2018, after a fall, a radiologist in Lubbock read his hip x-rays and made a routine note that nobody in the room understood except Nita. The note said his bone density and joint wear were somewhat advanced relative to stated age. Stated age, his license said 71. His body had been carrying the extra 2 years for 61 years, and the body kept honest books to the end. He died the next spring at home. The death certificate says 72. Nita buried him under a stone that reads 1947 to 2019. She told me she stood in the monument office and thought hard about those dates because she is the last person alive who knows they're short. She said, "The stone's wrong by 2 years. I had it cut that way anyhow. Those 2 years didn't happen here. I wasn't going to carve up what isn't ours." I don't know what stood at the edge of those rows outside Dimmitt before sunup on October 14th, 1957. I don't know where a cornfield can go for 48 hours that has 2 years inside it. I don't know what they were raising Coy Weathers toward with the lessons and the chores. I don't know if he graduated. I don't know if his collected memories are filed away somewhere, next to a girl who might still be 11, and I don't know how many other headstones in how many other counties are quietly wrong by a summer or a season or a year, cut short by families who understood, without ever being told, that some of their child's time belonged to somebody else. But I know the corn outside Dimmitt still goes up every summer and comes down every fall. I know that for 2 days in October of 1957, it held something open, and I know that a 10-year-old boy walked into it before sunrise, and that what walked out was someone who had been away a great deal longer than he was gone. The proof is 3 inches, 11 pounds, 1 12-year molar, and the margin note of a careful, frightened country doctor. The error is not in the instruments, it never was.